Welcome to The Relevance Report, where we explore the relevant stories that are shaping our world today. I'm Rebecca Brenham, your host this week. On today's show, we talk about relationships. Romantic relationships can be about seeking a lifetime partner. Sometimes it's simply about short-term dating, or sometimes it doesn't work out at all. Dating can be a fun or not so fun experience for everyone. This week, we dive into people's experiences of dating and relationships. Most people have experienced first dates, especially for university students. Contributing editors Leanna Bresson and Brendan Grape went around MacEwan University campus to hear about people's experiences with their first dates.
So it was a last-minute meet at Remedy Cafe downtown. It was okay. We both worked in healthcare, so we had some common knowledge. But then he started showing me his hobbies was creating new stuffed animals from stuffed animals that he'd picked up at Value Village, and they looked like little zombie creatures, but not in a cute way. And when he pulled out his phone to schedule the next date, I just had to calmly say, I don't think we're right for each other, but thank you very much. There was one where it ended up being organized by one of his friends that I hadn't met before. And then halfway through, his friend left. So it was like me and this guy I've never met, and then a bunch of his friends. So I just got drunk. I think the best dates are just very normal and cute. We go to donut party and pick up donuts, and then we go to the flea market and find a cool Hot Wheels, and then we go home and eat too much takeout and fall asleep on the couch. It's perfect.
My best first date was with my current partner. It lasted 12 hours, if I remember, because we would just not stop talking. And when we would stop talking, it was really comfortable silence. And overall, it was just a really great experience in knowing that the person that you're with, your first date was a success. It was fantastic. We just talked and talked and talked, and it never stopped, and we just always kept finding things that we were connected with somehow. First dates, usually coffee. Coffee's always a safe bet, especially as a woman. It's really hard sometimes because a lot of people are like, oh, let's go back to my house. I don't trust people. There's too many murders out there. Not to be morbid or anything like that, but there's just too high of a risk. So coffee is a really safe place, especially on Jasper Ave because it's so close to MacEwan. If you ever need an escape route, especially if you're a student at MacEwan, you could just be like, oh, I have a project that I have to meet up for. It's really safe to just pick coffee, and then sometimes I do board game cafes to see how competitive somebody is.
Well, to be honest, he kind of pissed me off the day I already knew that he was going to ask me out because he brought flowers and made some dinner, and then I had to leave for dance, but he pissed me off, so I was like, I'm going to just leave. And so he stayed and was like, I'll just wait until after you come back. And he cleaned up my house, and then when I came back, I had my house all clean, and we were watching a show, and he's like, hey, you want to be my girlfriend? And I was like, yeah. It's a long time coming. It took him 3.5 months.
Mostly just spending the quality time with the person who I want to go on a date with. I'm a big romantic, so nothing really too extravagant. Probably just something casual. Probably I've always wanted to have a date at the bridge, at a picnic, watching the sunset. Those types of dates. I definitely want to do those, yeah.
You know what? I haven't been on many dates per se, right? Every time I've it's always been okay, we're friends, we're hanging out, and then oh hey, we're going out, or more what you would consider, because it's totally what it is, a one-night stand as opposed to a date. And these things just sort of happen. Long time ago, never, not more than once.
This guy asked me to go to Kingsway, and he didn't really talk to me. We just kind of walked around. I had to initiate all the conversations, so all he did was reply, yeah, uh-huh. It made me feel very awkward, so I couldn't really do anything. It was just painful and silent.
I'd just like to prefix this by saying this is entirely my fault while this date sucked. I think I was in a first year of school, and before I was even in the journalism program, and I was just trying to meet people to hang out and talk because I didn't know what to do with my life in any facet of life itself, including romance. So I met with this one person who I really didn't know anything about whether we would vibe or not, and we met at MacEwan, and we're gonna go for a tea date at Remedy Cafe. And I was pretty broke at the time too, because I'm a first year uni student, didn't even have a job yet, I didn't know how to manage finances as an adult or anything. I was pretty dumb like that. So we ended up going to Remedy, and I wanted to buy the tea for us, and then my card declined went at Remedy, and very embarrassing moments. So then she had to pay for it, and then it was a really awkward rest of the first date. And when you're 18 and, not understanding much things about dating and stuff, I feel like you're allowed to forgive yourself for those kind of silly moments. My best first date was definitely with my current partner, and it was interesting because it was in the middle of the pandemic, and we were actually just like going right into like full lockdowns. I couldn't work during this time. I literally was not allowed to work. So we were both really bored and wanting to hang out and meet up, and we weren't sure what to do. So I asked her if she just wanted to go for a walk in the valley, and she was like, okay, yeah, we can go for a walk, we can wear masks, be safe, all that stuff. We were both kind of pretty conscious about COVID at the time, and we found out we were both MacEwan students, and we got to talk about school and stuff, and we ended up walking for 9 hours straight throughout the entire river valley just because we were having a great time. It was beautiful weather, and yeah, I don't know too many people who I could just walk and talk for 9 hours straight and be thoroughly entertained. And we only ended the date because it was physically too dark to stay out longer, and unfortunately we couldn't go anywhere else because literally everywhere was closed. So we just ended up going home, and then the next day we also walked for 6 hours straight pretty much.
I don't think I've ever had a bad date. I don't think I've never necessarily had a good date. I just had regular dates. I don't think any of them, I'm not in a relationship right now, so clearly I don't think any of them stuck out to me. I remember I went to the rec room maybe 5-6 years ago, and I remember leaving that day and feeling like I don't know if how do I phrase this? I don't know, I just remember really enjoying myself. I felt like I had a lot of fun, which was I don't know if it's unusual for dates. I usually feel pretty awkward, pretty shy. It's like you don't really know this person, what are they comfortable with? But I remember that particular day, I just felt strangely very comfortable, and leaving that date oh man, that wasn't too bad, and that's the one that really sticks out to me.
Well, I was really nervous, honestly, and I think I'd just come back from Bonnyville, and for some reason I agreed to go on a date at 7. We went to Remedy, and then we went and saw, I think it was Silent Night, Deadly Night at the Garneau. It was fun, and it was relaxed, but I also think the best first date I've ever had was with my current partner. Again, I don't know why I'm obsessed with Remedy, but we got coffee and then played crib, and then we went for a walk, and then he drove me to work. I think the worst first date I've ever had lasted a little too long. Thought I lost my debit card, but it was just within the lining of my coat. But this guy was actually older than I thought he was, and honestly, I thought it would fine. And then it just the gap was a little too much actually when you're actually physically there. And then he was kind of insisting on driving me to my house. I was like, you know what? You can just drop me off at my mailbox. I have to grab some mail anyway. And also, he kind of kissed me without asking.
When people get to the official dating stage, you enter into the honeymoon phase. Brendan Grape talked to people on campus to give us a look into the sweet stories of their brand new relationships.
So this was Valentine's Day this year, and my girlfriend works at MacEwan, and at her place of work, it's semi-open to the public. So what I did is, the day before she was working on Valentine's Day, I went in, talked to her coworkers, and brought them a bouquet and chocolates and stuff and a little card, so that when she got into work to open up the next day, she would be surprised by a bouquet of flowers and a card and everything waiting for her right there. So it was kind of an elaborate plan of mine to do that and set that up, and she was really happy with it. And then once we were both done working that day, we got to hang out and spend the rest of the day together, which was really nice. She does lots of cute little things, so she'll leave notes for me all around our place, and even in our Google, we have a shared Google calendar now, and she'll have little messages as events that just pop up every now and then, which is kind of a cute thing she does. And what else did we do recently?
We were hanging out, and I realized I was going to be late to the bus that I was going to take to Calgary, where my mom lived at the time, because we were hanging out. And so then he just drove me to Calgary. He canceled his plans that he had for the next day, and he just drove me to Calgary. And I really liked that he was just very willing to drop everything, show up for me. And he still has that, if I was in a different city and I was like, Craig, I need you to come here, he would drop everything and he would go. Can I get him to do the dishes on a regular basis? Not always, but big dramatic gestures, yes, he'd be totally into it.
There was one time, I think I was working, and then he didn't tell me this, but I have my coworker say, hey, somebody's here to see you. And then he packed me a lunch, and then he made this thing called sun tea, which is just tea bags and fruit, and then you let it sit in the sun. And then he gave me a bottle of that. It was just really heartwarming.
Now we are getting into the serious stage of the relationship, the long-term relationship. Contributing editor Nathan Leong talked to people who have been in their relationships for years. He finds out their secret for keeping the relationship healthy and things they have found out from their partners in the long run.
I don't have a been dumped story. I am just learning now that I'm the dumper, and usually it doesn't go well, but that's why I'm still in a relationship.
How long have you and your partner been together?
A little over 6 years.
Oh, nice. Do you have any advice for making a long-term relationship actually last?
My best advice is to just listen to yourself and don't put up with anything at all. If it's not working in the first few months, it's going to get worse in the years and when you live together. So bring things up as they come up and as they bug you. Communicate, deal with them then. Make sure that your partner knows it's not a problem with them. It's just a problem with how you two are relating. It's not about, your life isn't about finding the one person to love. It's about finding that person and then learning to love them in the way that they need and the way that you need as well.
Being an adult and figuring out how to do that stuff is weird and difficult, and I feel like our parents' generation had an entirely different experience with it, so there's not a whole lot that's capable of preparing you for what that's like today, other than, maybe some good friends who have also been through similar experiences. So just kind of like that caveat, don't be too hard on yourself, just be honest and open, and I think most people appreciate that.
I've been married to my partner for 13 years. So basically we've been together for 14 years. We were both doing a psych undergrad degree. We were in this really small program that had a cohort. In the 3rd and 4th year, you basically are in the same classes with the same people all the time. We basically became best friends very quickly. I was actually dating someone else. But yeah, then I broke up with that person, and basically the next day, Craig took me out and was like, I really like you. I'd really like to date you. One of the really cool things that I think back on our relationship is I feel like we both really needed each other, and we got together young, and we basically finished parenting each other in kind of the best way, where there were so many parts of us that were immature and not grown up or didn't know how to be grown up in a good way or a healthy way, and the other person was always really good at showing up for those parts, our sad parts, our hurt parts, our young parts that just needed a lot of love. We were always really good at showing up for that with each other. That's something that was really cool. So I think we've both changed a lot as we've grown up. So man, we went from being best friends to trying to figure out how to be married, and we got married young and quickly. There was a lot of family expectations, and there was a lot of pressure from family, and I don't think that really helped us in any way. So it was pretty rough for us. We didn't know how to manage the high stakes. I think it would have been better for us to just have some time to casually live together and be cool, let's just work out how to share household chores before we're all or nothing about this. And then that's kind of also something that's really changed in our relationship, is we've moved very much away from that perspective that this is all or nothing. It's we love each other, we'll always be involved in each other's lives, and we know that, but it's if the relationship needed to change in some way, that's okay. Whereas because it was so rigid when we got together, it was always a lot of fear about well, what if it doesn't work in this way? And then we're both afraid of losing the other person or being rejected by the other person, and then that just kind of brings out not really the best in each other. And so we figured out how to do that differently and grow up together.
Just communicating with your partner, and then also active listening is extremely important as well, because you can communicate, but if your partner isn't actively listening to you, then it doesn't work out. So yeah, I think those two things are important. That not everything is going to be super, super easy, and you're going to get in fights, and it's going to feel like the end of the world, but it's not, and you just have to work through things. I feel like in the beginning of my relationship, I was like, oh my god, it's the end of the world, we're having a fight, but you just have to work through things.
But not all relationships are meant to last. Many people have tasted the bitter sting of rejection. Leanna Breslin talked to people about what it's like to, get dumped.
The worst rejection that I've had. And with that, grade 12 high school, it's okay, here I am, gonna go ask out my crush. And saw her at the lockers. Her friend was next to her as well, but I was still gonna go for it. Why not? It's grade 12. And approach her, and like, mind you, this is when I was even more awkward than what I currently am now. And it was like, hey, do you want to maybe go out sometime? And so she looked at me. She's like, sorry, I'm interested in someone else. And then she looked at her friend and laughed. And it was devastating. So that was probably maybe, well, it wasn't the worst date. It was certainly the worst rejection that I felt. Probably one way is I retreat into video games and hide for a little while, wait until I build up my courage once again to go out and just be myself, but certainly hiding into that space of virtual comfort.
Okay, so I was like in the high school, and me and my friend, we were dating like friends, and like everything was good. It's over a year of dating that girl. Then like one day she disappeared, and no one can find her, even like her friend. Like I asked my friend to ask his friend to look for her and see what's going on. We were like worried about her if something happened to her, but it's not happened to her, it's happened to me because she found another rich man who took her to Italy, and she even didn't say bye or anything. And the funny thing is, my friend, when he find out about that she's not there anymore, he came to me and he said, oh, she's waiting for you. And like she was just sick, and I went with him, and like after that he was laughing and he told me, oh no, she's waiting for you in Italy, you have to take a plane and find her. Then he told me the story. It was heartbroken, and like it was really, really tough, but now it's funny story.
You know what, it wasn't an issue to me. I believe that either there's chemistry or there's not. It's always really awkward. I just prefer that people be honest about it and just say, hey, I don't feel a connection, rather than saying mean things, especially if you indicate that maybe you're not feeling a connection with them, and then they just turn really angry and mean. But I mean, we don't work out with everybody that we meet, so I'm going to reject people and people are going to reject me, and it's just part of the process. But it's how you do it that makes the difference.
A recent one, I went on a quick little Bumble date with somebody who I hadn't met before, and we had like rushed our first date a little bit. And when I sat down at the table, all that they did for 2.5 hours was just mansplain music and healthcare to me. And there was moments when he was dropping like offensive words, and I had to be like, hey, like you need to stop. And he's like, oh, I respect you so much for being bold to tell me that's wrong. I'm like, oh, that's horrible. And then I walked home and he didn't even see if I got home safe. So I was like, this is a really bad experience. I definitely have to take some time to reflect if it was like a personal feeling, if it was something that I feel I was proud of and they rejected that, or if it was they rejected part of my life that I spend a lot of time doing or a lot of time in. I don't know, rejection's hard. I feel like rejection hits me more with friendships than it does with romantic relationships. Romantic relationships are come and goes, but rejection from friendships I feel last a really long time.
Because I moved around all the time growing up, because my parents were in the army, and then even after I moved out of the house to go to university, I just kept moving around, and just I've always been either I'm off to a new place or I'm in a big enough city.
I went into my room and I was like, is this what it's supposed to be like?
One funny time, this one's really hilarious to me. This was the summer between high school and starting university, and I just started dating this girl at like the end of high school and just hanging out, and didn't really know each other super well at that point. We've been dating for like a month, and we were hanging out in my basement watching Pirates of the Caribbean, and we were like just, we're hanging out, cuddling, having a good time. At least I thought we were having a good time. And then asking her about like, oh yeah, when do you want to hang out next? And she's like, yeah, about that. And then she kind of just like very passively aggressive without ever like really stating it outright implied that she didn't want to see me anymore but still wanted to be friends. I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. And then she went on a trip for like 3 weeks and didn't talk to me during that entire time. So I was like, okay, yes, that was a breakup. That's exactly what that was.
Thanks for joining us for the Relevance Report. This week's episode was produced by Leanna Bresson, Rebecca Brunham, Natan Leong, and Brendan Grape. The show was edited by Leanna Bresson. The show's supervising producer is Sheena Roster. Additional studio supervision by Sasha Stanojevic. This podcast is produced as part of the BCSC 325 Radio News and Documentaries course in the winter 2024 semester. The course is part of the Bachelor of Communication Studies program in the Department of Communication at MacEwan University. The show was edited and produced out of the MacEwan Media Production Studio. Our theme music is called Buzzing by Kaylee Lambert. Logo design for this podcast is by Sasha Stanojevic. And I'm Rebecca Brenham, your host for this week's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the Relevance Report on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you heard, please leave us a review and rating. It really helps people find the show. Please join us again next week when we report on the relevant stories that are shaping our world.